I'm president of the Red River Valley Asperger Autism Network, and I am pleased to welcome you to our Lunch and Learn today. Our speaker will be Emily Coler-Hanson, who is a therapist here at Ann Carlson Center. Specializes
Not
in
here.
a location close to this one. A location that you can drive to from this one. The thing that I loved when I looked at your bio is how you focus so much on the strengths-based, and
Absolutely.
and I love that because that's how I operate. So I am pleased to hear what we can do to plan for summer, and I will hand it over to you.
Sounds great.
Thank you.
Like Shell said, I'm Emily Coler-Hanson. I am part of the new mental health therapy team at Ann Carlson, which I'm very excited about. So we now have more well-rounded services for kids. When they asked me to present talking about summer, this is one of my favorite things to present about. I only have a handful of slides. I want to keep it short. I know we have a couple of experts with us, and I'll let you introduce yourselves when you get to that space so that I don't go back and forth too much to confuse people. But this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Planning in advance is huge. I know a lot of people, I started asking families a couple weeks ago, what are your plans from summer? And I get these kind of funny looks from families going, it's February. But in reality, registrations for a lot of summer activities have already opened. As I was compiling a list of summer activities, I was kind of disheartened to see some things were already full. And so it's really important to start planning early. Preferred activities fill up quickly. There are a lot of activities in our community that offer scholarships or supplemental funding, and that typically moves quickly as well, particularly through park districts and school districts and those sorts of things. So if you are wanting scholarships for activities, please apply early. You're much more likely to get them. It's also really important to start prepping your child early, asking them what types of activities do you want to do. Summer can be a great time to try new things. There's less stress on children, so if we're wanting to kind of increase our safety bubble, it can be a good time to do that, but making sure they're interested in as well, and including them in the decision making. It's easier if you know what you're expecting. If you're going to be trying something new this summer, my first tip to people is always have a plan B. Don't sign your child up for the very expensive summer camp at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida if there's going to be no way that they could go home if they wanted to, and that there would be really hard feelings if we were out our thousands of dollars. If you're interested in trying more of a space camp, UND has one. You could go up just for the day and check it out without committing to something that would be really hard to quit and leave. Involve your child again in this decision. If my parent would have signed me up for a sewing camp, I probably would have been really excited to try something new. If it was a different activity, I have one friend who would spend, weeks at her grandparents' farm. She loved it. I was good for a couple days and then I was ready to go home. So make sure it's something that they're interested in. Again, research. Look at pictures online. Know what you're getting into. Talking with other parents of kids who have gone there. Finding out as much as you can beforehand. It can be helpful for kids if you're trying something new to invite a friend. Bring a buddy with. Is it much easier for me to try new things if my older sibling goes with? My sibling and I were the opposite. My mom would sign her up for activities, she would go there and have a meltdown, and then I started gymnastics earlier. I started whatever because my mom paid for the spot and my sister didn't want to do it. And so being able to plan and know and try those things can be great, but do it in a way that kids are comfortable with. It can be helpful to meet staff tour and take pictures. I told lots of families that when you go and do tours, have your kid bring their smartphone with or bring a tablet with where you can video record. So when you're talking about tomorrow, here's what we're going to go do, let's pull up that video and look at what it looks like, we can remember and we go in fresh knowing what to expect. Starting something small. Again, if you want to try a space camp, which one are we going to try instead of shipping you off to Kennedy Space Center for a week, which would be super fun, but if that's not what you're expecting and not what you're ready for, it's not going to be fun for anybody. Transition objects can be super helpful. If you're in a new space, what is it that you bring with that makes you feel comfortable? At our house, it's a brown bear. We own a dozen of these brown bears because when we travel, we bring 2 or 3 of them, and they get washed frequently. And if we lose one, or if the one day one got dropped in the toilet, it could have been the end of the world, but it wasn't dropped; it was thrown, and that wasn't on me. So those things happen. And again, writing your transition plan for your child. I talk about transition plans a lot. Transition plans are that Cliff's Notes for your kid. What are their likes? What are their dislikes? What are their go-to items? If I want to win this child over, what do I say to them? I had a child in my office earlier this week. I'd never met them before. And he started talking about science, and he came up to me and he said, do you know what a pulsar is? And I said, yeah. Do you know what a quasar is? And he lit up, and we were buddies. And so if you can find those go-to items for kids that you can bond and connect over, you can build relationships a lot more quickly. Include in your child's transition plan, or all about them, what their early warning signs are. If my child's having a hard time, here's what you notice first. And go for the really subtle things, not that their voice gets louder. Go for the subtle things like, I have one girl, when she starts to have a hard time, the first thing she does is pull her hat down. Or she looks down, or she changes her eye contact, or she talks less. Those would be the moments you would want staff to intervene really early to check in with them and provide that support so that we don't get beyond too uncomfortable. Calming items are helpful. I've had some kids that have that Minecraft Steve in their pocket, or is it a picture of their dog? When my nephew started kindergarten, his mom had an extra blanket that she sewed swatches of in the pockets of his pants. So when he was at school, he could put his hand in his pocket and he knew part of his blankie was there. Nobody else knew it was there, but he had it. And so there's these kind of comfort items that we can build in for kids. Again, those golden ticket items. I've had some kids where at the end of the day, do we have a favorite activity waiting for you, so that you've held it together through your whole soccer practice and now we're going to go home and do Legos. Or what is that item that's going to help us calm back down and re-regulate after we've really expended a lot of energy keeping it together and trying something new. And emergency contacts. Make sure whatever transition plan you have for your child has all of their emergency contacts on it. And any medications, I should have put that on the list, but if there's any concerns for medications, allergies, health issues, include those too. Travel. If you are going somewhere or planning summer trips, that could be a whole new beast. Include your child in the planning process. One of my favorite stories is about a child who was told his family was taking a Disney cruise. The cruise got closer and closer, and they started talking about it. And it turns out his understanding of a Disney cruise was not actually what a Disney cruise is. He thought Disney cruise meant we're taking a boat and going to Disney World, which is not what a Disney cruise is. And so had he gone there and gotten on this Disney cruise, he would have been very disappointed because it wasn't what he expected. Still a great family trip, but be sure to match that up. I had one family that told their child they were going camping, and so he is envisioning this rugged outdoor trip in tents and hikings and in mountains, and when his dad shows up with the rental RV, he lost it. That this is not what camping is. And so be careful and make sure you're clarifying exactly here's what we're doing, here's pictures, we're on the same page with what's going to happen. Plan for sensory issues. I love this little picture of the guy on the shoulders. I don't know if they're at an air show or fireworks or what it is. By the look on this child's face, I can't tell if we're having a good time or not. But that would again depend on the child. For some kids that could be super fun. I'm really focused, this is my special interest, I'm loving it. And for some kids this could be a get me out of here. So being able to pay attention to those. I also like these little pop-up tents that if we ever need a quiet space, we put up our pop-up tent. If you're in a hotel room, take the flat sheet off the bed and throw it over the desk or the table in the room, and you have an instant pop-up hiding space. So finding those quiet spots that when I'm in my quiet spot, nobody bugs me in there. Did you have a question?
What a brilliant idea. I'm going to suggest that to the daycare provider.
Absolutely.
Because they don't have one.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take it there.
Yeah, and they're
They're
easy
cheap.
and they're very cheap. I prefer the ones that have some sort, this one has kind of a, you probably can't see it, a mesh panel on the top. So an adult or supervisor can peek in without being disruptive. You don't have to unzip or get in someone's space to make sure or check on them. So that's a nice one. Bringing those comforts of home. I think any kid who has a favorite object, they typically look like this bear. They have miles on them, they are well loved, they are fraying. Those are the items that you go, I know this is their favorite. It might not be that fancy blanket that the grandma splurged on that is gorgeous and that we don't use as much. It's going to be that item that they drag everywhere. Bring those with. Focusing on the basics. It is amazing what kids who are well hydrated and well fed behave like compared to kids who have missed a snack or haven't had enough to drink. It never hurts to bring extra water bottles. Platypus has a new, it's called a soft bottle. It is a plastic pouch with, and you can choose what kind of cap you want. If you want a twist-off cap that's on your water bottles today, or if you want a squirt bottle cap. But it's a water bottle that when it's empty, it rolls up. It's ultra light, you could fit it in your pocket. Those are the ones we bring when we travel because I can throw them in my purse, and once we get through airport security, we fill them up at the water spot, we have them wherever we go. We all do better when we're hydrated, especially if you're going places. No one wants to get sick. And packing those extra snacks. It amazes me what a well-timed pack of fruit snacks will do for a kid. And it doesn't have to be fruit snacks. It can be granola bars, protein bars, whatever their favorites are. Having those escapes if you needed. Making sure it's a vacation for everybody. Even though we're part of the same family, my spouse and I, if he said, I'd really like to plan a golf trip, my response would be, see you later. I'm not going. That would not be a vacation for me. If I said, there's this sewing retreat that I want to go on, here's the new pattern I've gotten, he would be like, not for me, see you later. And so making sure that when we're planning those family vacations, it's something fun for everybody. Safety is paramount. And I've got a separate page on safety, so we'll talk about that too. But when we're trying new things and going new places, test drive it first. I know sometimes for us that takes the excitement out of it, but that's a neurotypical thing. There will be excitement for kids on the spectrum no matter where you go. We will find those fun things. And so if we're sending our child to summer camp and they love going and it says sunscreen on the list, find out what kind of sunscreen your kid is willing to use before you send them. Simple things like sunscreen comes in a million different kinds, a million different scents, a million different ways to apply it. Or do we say, you know what, I know you hate wearing sunscreen, we're going to invest in a long sleeve swim shirt and a hat, and we're going to do the best we can with other options. And so be particular and try those things out before you send them. As a former camp counselor, I'm begging you. Safety is paramount. I think the rules change when we are other places. We are out of our comfort zone, and although I might know my child really well, I don't know how my child is going to react in a new situation or interacting with a new person if they are totally out of their comfort zone. Have emergency alerts and contact information. You can actually get the wipe off, they're not wipe off, but the temporary tattoos made with your contact information. And so if your child isn't someone where you could sew a tag in their clothing or that they tolerate a bracelet, could we put a temporary tattoo on them, do it up on your shoulder where your sleeve covers it, but if in a crisis situation, if someone said, hey, what's your mom's phone number, they can do this. They don't have to remember it in that moment. You can get it put on bracelets. They make running tags that go on your shoes. That's great if your child will keep their shoes on or you're somewhere that you would be wearing them. GPS tags are wonderful if that's an option for you. I got to watch a presentation about Project Lifesaver a couple of weeks ago where they use radio frequency technology to locate people who've been missing. Since they've started this, they have rescued almost 3,400 people. Their average time to find someone is less than 30 minutes, which is phenomenal. If we think about what it takes to do a search and rescue for someone who's missing, it's incredibly resource intensive. If we're talking about staff time, law enforcement, emergency personnel, do we do trucks, boats, helicopters? The longer it takes, the more likely we are to have a negative outcome. Kids on the spectrum in particular are more likely to head towards water, which brings another risk itself. And so with Project Lifesaver, they're a nonprofit. The locators are reasonably priced, and you can move, if you're traveling, you let law enforcement in Florida know we're going to be in Florida. Here's their frequency. We will send our information, and that they have it. Pretty neat to be able to rescue and find where your child is at in 30 minutes, which could, be outcome changing. Again, with water, life jackets are an issue for kids on the spectrum. Take your kid with, if you can, to the store, try them all on, see what fits the most comfortable. I have some kids that will wear a swim shirt under the life jacket because it rubs less and that's what's more comfortable. They make lots of different designs of them. If your kid is not one who will go to the store, order several on Amazon and return the ones that aren't going to work for you, or Walmart or wherever. But try them out. What are you willing to wear and tolerate? I know with my child, we had to try a couple of different infant life jackets because his cheeks were so giant that when we put them on, he would cry and his mouth was all squished up. It was adorable. I have like 3 great photos, but he was miserable. And so being able to try those things out. This life jacket on the far left, the narrow one, they're more expensive, but they only activate once they hit water. And so it's a very slim profile, doesn't take up a lot of space, very lightweight. Hunters use them, big people ice fishing use them, so you're not wearing a cumbersome life jacket, but once you hit that water, it blows up. So they're kind of on an as-needed thing. Might not be practical if you're wanting to spend the whole day swimming, but if you're someone who doesn't want to be in the water and we're on a boat and we're scared of what happens if we fall in, this might be something for you.
Emily,
Yes.
do you know if those are available at places like Shields in town, or would we order?
Yep, Shields has them, Fleet Farm has them. Lots of kind of more high-end sporting goods stores will have them, but you can find them online as well. And lots of adjustable ability, and the straps and things are all on the back. I'm also not opposed to leashes in the right time and the right place. I know that people have mixed feelings about this, but when it is a safety issue, I would put safety first, and it all depends on how you do this. You're not going to put a child on a leash and tie him up with the dogs outside while you go have dinner in the restaurant. They're not to drag your child or used as a means of transportation. They are to keep your child close to you in a situation that could be potentially dangerous if they ran. If we are, going to the Lego store in New York and that requires that we get on the subway, a subway is not a safe place for a child who's a runner. That is a place we need a child next to us and close to us, because if we fall on tracks that are electrified, we're kind of stuck. And so if we're in situations where traveling, in an airport, this would be a place that I would use it, where I need my child to stay close to me because it's very crowded, very busy. If you get lost, it's not going to be somewhere we can find you quickly. That would be something I would consider. Yeah, Joanne?
Related to this, a lot of us run into judgmental comments from people.
Yep.
What kind of advice do you have for us to deal with that?
Yep, I would say in that moment, again, think about how much you want to self-disclose. There's a part of you that doesn't have to say anything to the stranger that you're never going to see again. There would be a part of me if you felt like self-disclosing, saying, my child has autism and safety is their priority. And you can end it there. Sometimes you can just ignore it and you walk away. One of my favorite bar phrases is, whether or not it's a hill worth dying for. Is that a conversation you want to engage in that moment? And do you have to? I think sometimes it's harder when it's a family member, or if it's a grandparent who says, I can't believe you do that to my grandchild. I think those are the ones that are really tough. The random strangers are easier to brush off.
I think Molly had the best response.
Yeah?
We did something like that for Bobby, and we were in the cities, and someone was, giving me
Yeah.
a bunch of grief about it. And I was stunned, and I carried business cards that talked about autism, and I was
Sure.
about ready to hand her one. And Molly looked at her, she's like, autism, Google it.
I like that. That's a good one.
One thing I'd like to bring up.
Yes, please do.
You were just addressing how to have 2 adults talk about it.
Yes.
Think about the child who is
Absolutely.
stuck in between this,
And
who
listening to that.
who is hearing the judgmental stuff. It's humiliating.
Yes.
So can you address that? How to help a child, 9, 10 years old, who's hearing this judgmental
Yeah.
stuff, who's on a leash?
Absolutely. I'm curious from you, how would you want someone? Because I have an idea that I would, if I was on the receiving end of this, as the child on the leash, I would want someone to back me up and defend me and let people know that this is because I'm loved and cared about. But how would you want somebody to respond? Because I think we also look at the issue of, if they're 9 and 10, is this developmentally appropriate? Because you're old enough to say, I don't want to do this in an airport. Can we make another plan? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that might not be the plan for you.
Yeah, have a little bit of leeway. If it is absolutely necessary for safety reasons, then yeah, I understand that. But if you are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate, then let the child have a little bit of say in here too.
Absolutely.
And discuss with your child ahead of time how you are both going to react if you get judgmental
Mm-hmm.
comments.
Yeah.
So they're prepared for that. And so that they know that when you respond to them, you're not passing judgment on the child.
Mm-hmm.
And let them know that the person who is passing judgment doesn't know anything about you, or who
Yeah.
you are, or what's going on. So it won't be taken personally. It's just a person who is closed-minded.
Yes. Uninformed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically, treat me like a human being.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's what we did with Bob. We
Yeah.
talked to him before, and you know what, some people are really not cool and they don't know anything about autism and they don't have the kind of manners that you have. So we tried to make it like, Bob, you're this really great guy and not everybody is as cool and as smart as you. So when people would start saying things to Bob, Bob would go, and he just wouldn't pay any attention because he knew it was their problem, not his problem.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were proactive, because if we hadn't been proactive, I'm afraid, John, you're absolutely right, he would have felt that way.
Yeah.
So that's really good insight.
Seems to me you can cool that up too.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could put wings on it, you could put.
We had Thomas the Tank Engine stuff on ours.
Yeah.
Absolutely, so
Yeah.
that it's not to the child too,
Right.
it's not, I mean, this leash, I mean, my
Yeah.
cool costume.
Yeah, I've also seen people will put the child's jacket over the top and have a hole in the back of the jacket, so you don't see the harness part of it. I like the ones that clip in the back, particularly for little kids, because the wrist ones, they can undo. And if we're concerned at safety at that point, then that's why we're doing it. It's not just to tether people to things.
And I think you're right about age appropriate.
Yes.
I mean, you're not gonna do this to an older,
Mm-mm. No,
I hope not.
no.
It's one of those things where if they have enough sense to, like, if they can follow directions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you don't really need, like, yes, you can, or they can stay close to the parent or whoever is being the caretaker or whatever, but say is a younger person or like or a kid that doesn't respond well and or like that may be one of the things you have to do.
Yeah, I agree. This is not for
there
everybody.
are options, so
Absolutely, absolutely.
And I like what you said about, underneath a jacket or something, just to kind of hide it, because, the child will be self-conscious about a leash.
Yeah,
And so the more that you can hide it, the better, I would say.
yeah, absolutely. It doesn't need to, the goal is not to embarrass or shame anybody.
These leash things have been around for about 35 years now, and so I would think a lot of people are fully understanding
Yeah,
of it, so.
yeah,
well that and depending on how crafty you are, you can also dress these things up too.
oh yeah, absolutely. And I've seen some that are more of a compression vest as well. So if you need that sensory component, there's just a clip on the back. There's lots of different variations of it. And having those to be safety. And I think the only time you consider it is when it's age development appropriate and safety is your number one issue. I think there have only been a couple times where I've recommended them for families, and they've been for younger children who are runners and were concerned about traffic.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want this used on, say, 6, 7, 8,
No.
like older slash
Yeah,
going into teen. Like
Absolutely.
unless it's really, really, really needed.
absolutely.
Unless that. But,
Yeah.
I just asked Bobby, we used it when he was up till about, he was 4 and 5,
Mhm.
and he said he doesn't remember ever wearing it.
Okay.
Yeah. Rock star.
And we didn't use it frequently,
Yeah.
like when we went to Minneapolis.
Mhm.
I mean, kids that size are quick and they duck in between, you have to make sure you have them all the time. And we even took a carabiner at one point and took the handle of the leash, and I hate those, we had a monkey one.
Yeah,
And we looped it on us so we could also hold his hand, because we were trying to teach him at the same time, while we had that safety net.
yeah,
This is why we need this, but if you hold my hand all the time, we don't need to use this.
yeah.
And
It's
that
a great
helped
way
us
to build that
transition
skill.
out of it.
And I love that idea of being able to hold their hand and still have it attached, because I think also when you're talking about stigma,
Yes,
for this, that would get far less stigma
yes.
than having a leash and having the child 5 feet out in front of you or
Yeah.
off to the side or,
You keep it
whatever.
close.
Yeah, just trying to train him without him
yeah.
running away and us being in a panic was what we used it for. And it was very successful for us.
Mhm. Yeah,
Good
he's
idea.
still here today. But be sure to also plan in some downtime. Don't overschedule your child this summer. This is a time to recharge and relax and do something fun before next fall. Yes?
I know that those camps like at NDSU and MSUM,
Mm-hmm.
if you alert them ahead of time when you enroll your child that my child has autism, that they do make accommodations.
Yeah.
Yes.
And,
I
because they're
can't-
highly special interest oriented,
Yes.
kids can be very successful there.
Yes, MSUM for swimming lessons. I have a couple of kids who have autism that are taking swimming lessons there. We're able to get private lessons for the same price and not be in a group class. So then they have the same coach the entire time. It's a time that works for the family, and it's that one-on-one. And so ask about what's available. If you're willing and able to self-disclose and share that diagnosis, and share those All About Me pages so people know how to work with your kid. Because again, not every kid on the spectrum is the same. We want to help you and your family be the ones to plan accommodations for programming.
And the ones that you think won't make accommodations,
Yeah,
a lot of the time will. We sent
Yeah.
our kids to Luther Crest Bible Camp,
yeah,
and they have a buddy program.
yes.
So the kids just had a one-on-one buddy that slept in their cabin. And also Camp Grassic is a camp just for special needs kids that's out by Bismarck. That is available for the kids, and there are scholarships to that. It's a little pricey, but there are scholarships available.
Yeah,
And that is geared for our kids, so
yeah.
there's downtime already built in.
Camp Cormorant will also make accommodations and will allow, if they have support staff, to attend as well and be in the same cabin. And they also have scholarships, and so if that's something you're interested in, they're pretty flexible. And we'll even do half-week programs if we just want to go for a couple days, not the full week. They'll work with you on that too. And we also have 2 experts. So after hearing all of this, correct me. and please add, because you have both survived and learned a lot from your own experiences. And introduce yourselves as well, because now people remember your names when it's all at once.
My name is John Fody. I have Asperger syndrome, and I'm a videographer and a public speaker.
Matthew Holfeld, just come to these to help with or to be on panel basically. So, for me, I actually wasn't DX'd until after I was out of college. So, my experience with the autism part was a little bit different. Though the stuff I was doing, let's see here, I did camps from age 8 to 14, and then after that it was Trowood, and at that particular time, yeah, it was later high school, so I was also working at the time, but for the Trowood stuff, depending on what you're into, like if you're into acting, if you're into tech, if you're into sound, etc., like you can find something there.
If you're into sword fighting.
Yes.
If you're into sword fighting.
Well,
my nephew did
basic-
sword fighting there one summer. And that's his special interest was swords. So he came home, he's like, look at what I got to do today. So excited. It was awesome. I loved it.
Well, I had one summer where, I mean, just to try it out, like I had done or not formal, it was ballroom dancing. I mean, just me being curious. So, I mean, and kind of one of those, yeah, I did this, I can do this if you want, but I mean, it's not gonna be a real everyday, yeah,
That
go
could be our
and do
next
this.
lunch and learn if you wanna do ballroom dancing.
Well, I've totally forgotten like everything I had learned on that, considering that it was 20 years ago, so.
But how fun that you got to try something new and be able to say that you did it. And I think for a lot of kids, that's the experience. When you go back to school and you talk about what did you do over the summer, they want to have fun summer experiences just like everybody else. Of the camps that they went to, or the time they spent with people, or the time they spent doing favorite activities or special interests. And so we need to give them all of those same experiences because they're entitled to it. They should get to do that. It's summer for everybody.
Well, too true, and depending on, say, the parents, like if they work, if one's at home, et cetera, depending on what that situation is, you might have to base stuff around that also.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Say both parents are working and the kid is a latchkey, like, yeah, you have to make sure that the key, or that the kid is safe getting home and
Yeah.
so.
Absolutely.
I would say really tap into the obsessive interest of whatever that is to find a match. Let's see, what else? I would say that the more organized something is, the better. Really have an itinerary
That's a good idea.
set out ahead of time to go over everything of what's going to be happening. I always appreciate that, and that is when I enjoy things the most, when it's organized and planned and you have an idea. There's some leeway for flexibility within that itinerary of what we'll be able to do that certain day, but just a general outline of day one, this, day two, this, and so on.
Is it important for you to have some downtime planned in
Yes.
when you travel?
Yes.
For me also, like,
Yeah.
say I'm going and visiting family, like mass family event, there are 20, 30 people there, I need downtime, so.
So how do you two get that when you travel or you're somewhere new?
I go back to the hotel room.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done a lot of school trips to New York, China, and Florida and California, and I would just go back to the hotel room. I knew exactly the address, get a taxi to go back, and then I take some time off, and then have a plan to re-meet with the group at a specific time, and that was how I got my downtime.
Yeah, that's it. Do you ever feel like you have to justify that with other people you're with of why you don't want to do something or you need a break?
Yeah, sometimes I did. I would stay kind of vague, but I would negotiate that ahead of time, though, just saying that there will be times where I'm going to need some downtime, so I'm going to opt out of certain activities,
Sure.
and that's really all I need to know.
Depending on who it's with, like, say, for my family, I basically don't need to say anything, but say, like, friends or depending on who it is, but yeah, if I just don't feel like doing it, I'm not gonna do it. Or if I need downtime in a place I'm already at, like, I'll just go and step outside or
Sure.
walk around or just disappear. I mean, and yeah, that does occasionally cause problems, but I mean, this is one of the things you get when you get me coming around. So,
Yes.
I have a question. If your child requires the downtime and they're with, in a camp situation or an organization or a class, anything like that, and their downtime is being alone,
Mm-hmm.
they don't always let them be alone. Well,
Yeah.
most of the time they don't let a kid be alone. So how do you plan for that?
Sure. I think that depends on the situation, but it's something that I would try and plan in advance. Any summer camp is in any accredited summer camp. If you send your child to a camp, please choose one that's accredited, because that means there are certain safety standards they have to follow. The ACA has a great website on that, but any summer camp has to have some sort of infirmary or quiet space for kids who are ill, and I've seen kids be able to use that space for downtime too. Particularly if nobody else is using it. And it doesn't get used very frequently in summer camps because it's a short term, kids aren't there very long. But if it's something that we can go and have that quiet space with whoever is on staff as the camp nurse or in the director's office or wherever that may be, my guess is if it's an overnight camp, they would be able to find a space for that. If it's day camps, if you're doing a class and you're there for a couple hours and needs downtime, see if you can work with them to plan for that. Sometimes you might even have to provide it for yourself. Which is hard and frustrating, and I totally get that. I've had parents who will say, okay, you're gonna be at camp for 2 hours, I'm gonna show up at 2 o'clock partway through. If you need downtime, here's where I will be parked in the parking lot, or I'm gonna knock on your door or check in. If you want this break, come out to the car, we'll have your tablet and headphones, 20 minutes, and then you can go back to group, or whatever it may be. So sometimes you have to get really creative and plan and coordinate that with staff in advance. If they won't accommodate it, then that tells you there might not be the wiggle room you need for a plan B if your child needs an out. And they should all have an out. None of this is mandatory. If someone is not having a good time, we don't have to suffer through this just to say that we did an art camp or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I did have one little tidbit for that one though.
Yeah.
Cause you had said the infirmary,
Yeah.
try doing that at a diabetic camp.
Oh, that's true. I bet that's a busier place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, could be. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes.
For both of you guys, now a lot of times when we know in advance with our kids, if we get them into something that's probably going to create issues for them, that we work on things. But a lot of times, even within their own subjects, if the kids are doing video games with other kids and things like that, that they're very into and things. But even within those situations with their own peers on the spectrum and things, that they then engage into ramping up. How have you guys, and I'm sure it's changed over the years for you since you were kids to now being adults, as to how you perceive your own self that, I'm getting agitated and what do I do at this point? But at the same time, I've got all my friends here and I don't necessarily want to show that I'm not enjoying myself even though this is an enjoyable situation.
I actually had one, trying to remember what grade that was. It was grade school, yeah, okay. I actually had one time in grade school where someone had done something that either made me mad or something or another. I didn't want to be there, etc., etc. I walked off. I managed to take everyone off that day. But because I just disappeared. I didn't let anyone know where I was going, and yeah, it just was abounding trouble. But I've always been like that. Like if something isn't going right for me, I'll try and remove myself ASAP. And over the years, I've kind of learned that if I'm gonna do that, I need to let people know what's going on first, so that I don't get some mad person calling out my mom and wondering where I disappeared to, so.
Yeah, I would just say make an excuse to remove yourself from the situation. And that can be distinct, it can be anything. Now I'm able to better control my emotions, go through something, and then after the event is over, go someplace else and let out those emotions in a different area. So I'm able to have better control over that now.
For me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, kids do not have a filter.
Takes time, takes
Well,
practice.
exactly. If something's wrong, they will let you know immediately. So, and
And it might be through a behavior, it might not always be articulate and say,
Well,
I don't like this.
exactly,
Yeah.
depending on the kid, but
Yeah.
like, that's one thing for me, because if I'm around, people with kids, the parents have figured out over time that if their kid becomes loud, boisterous, etc., like high squeaky, it does not go well with me.
Yes.
So
Yeah. And I think you plan like you would for anybody. You set your children up to be successful, and you want them to have a good time, and you do things that are going to be interesting and that they can be a part of. You're not going to necessarily choose 4-star very expensive restaurants to take small children to. It might not be the place, and no one's going to have fun. So again, choosing your activities carefully and planning with them, and I love let them know, over-inform in advance and have those schedules so we know what to expect, I think is wonderful. We just have a couple minutes left. Any closing thoughts from either of you two gentlemen?
I do have one thing that I would like to say. One of the biggest challenges was always the anxiety of the travel. Being there is fun. Traveling there was always stressful. Being cooped up in a car or a little airplane spot, so I would take, a little portable game machine for the plane ride or for that, or some sort of a comfort object to help me through that, and just try to get into a mindset that this will be okay, and just maybe make a plan with somebody else to help you calm down if they sense that you're a little stressed, because the travel was always the most stressful part for me, but being there was always a blast.
Yeah.
for me, I've always used music as a way, or as like a way out first off, and or like depending on how I'm feeling, depending on what music is being played also. But like with what's out now, like you can just get like a portable Bluetooth headset and say you're hooking it to your phone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's small. So, but back in the day it was Discman, tape player, etc. And yeah, those were a little bit bigger, but
it works.
It worked.
Yeah.
So
I like that idea of being able to bring your music wherever you go.
well,
That's a great one.
and with what's out for, if you're talking about tech nowadays, like yeah, there's Bluetooth, there's X, Y, and Z, there's portable speakers, there's
Oh yeah, lots of options.
So, I mean, depending on where I am, also depends on what audio device is being used. Because I've got a portable speaker, I've got portable or the Bluetooth headsets, et cetera, et cetera. So, and if if I kind of need like, kind of a kill time kind of thing going on. Of course, with the phones nowadays, you can load games, you can load books, you can load
Absolutely.
X, Y, and Z onto them. Or like also with the tech that's out nowadays, like if you've got an iPad, if you've got a Kindle, if you've got X, Y, and Z, like
Yeah.
if you're into any of those are small enough to where it's not gonna take up a whole lot of space, but is portable enough to where you can just put it in your backpack
Yeah.
or purse or whatever.
Absolutely.
So,
We have one question in the back.
Well, I was thinking when you were talking earlier about kind of going over what to expect, like John, you said, it helps to know what's coming and what the day's going to be like. Maybe that would also be a good time to go over with our child what their coping strategies are and their calming strategies. So my grandson his favorite thing was always lions.
Yeah.
And one day in first grade, his mom was allowed to take something to school as long as he kept it in his backpack all day.
Sure.
Well, his mom started noticing over the course of a week that the lion kept getting bigger. He had a collection. And so that was her signal. Look, something's going on. Let's see if we can figure out how to help.
Shrink the lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the whole idea of, practicing and reviewing those calming strategies, I think is important too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think
absolutely.
Knowing you have access to them is also huge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
knowing that you have an access to it can be calming just on its own.
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
two through there, like, if you've got, I mean, I've always got my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So say I need an out on the bus or et cetera, like I can pull out my phone and
Yeah.
just dig around with that.
And I would say if your kids rely on those technology pieces, pack an extra charger. And
This is, if you need a short charge,
yes,
there are battery packs.
there are battery packs. Those can be lifesavers if you're somewhere. One other, I guess my last thought is planning for how you wait. Because when we go places and do things in the summer, I think waiting is something we don't anticipate. If we're at an amusement park, waiting in line. If we are waiting for tickets, if we are waiting for food, having those things that we can distract and keep busy while we're standing in line is huge. I think waiting is where, if I tell somebody I just need you to wait, that doesn't tell me what I'm supposed to do with myself in that moment.
Exactly.
And brainstorming those options when we're stuck can be hard. So I think waiting is where I've seen some kids get tripped up.
Plan ahead of time, yeah.
Yeah.
Have
The
the
one thing that's
discussion.
helpful, if you go to amusement parks, we went to Disney.
Yeah.
They have single driver
Mm-hmm.
line and one for, people who are more than one. We talked to guest services when we got there, and Bob got to wear a button.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to go to the single riders lane. We didn't have to do all that waiting. I know Six Flags has a program like that as well.
Yep.
So just research where you're going to be going, because there might be programs where you'll still have to wait,
Yes.
but you won't have to wait as long.
Yes.
When was that for Disney?
It was after the golden ticket was taken away. So it's not the same as the golden ticket.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Because I was just
We
gonna
didn't have to
say
have-
that,
We did have to have a note from our doctor
Yeah.
stating that, yes, this is a legitimate issue.
Yep.
Otherwise, everybody would do it. But
Yeah.
with a little bit of legwork, you can still have some of those benefits.
Plan ahead.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, like, if you can do a little bit of legwork, for this before you get somewhere, like say, say you wanna do the single rider one, or rider thing, yeah, you're gonna need the doctor's note. Well,
Yeah.
of course, you're gonna need to talk to the doctor.
Yes. Have those letters ready. It's nice if you can give me a couple days advance.
And,
We'll make it work. We'll do our best, but it's
and
nice to have a day to get them ready to you.
I've had a few things where I've had to do stuff like that also,
Yeah.
but I've had a little more time to actually get said thing done.
Yes.
So, I mean, now it's just become, where I know what needs to get done, I know what process I need to do this in, I know who I need to talk to, so
Yeah.
it all gets done fairly quickly.
Yeah, because you've established those routines and how to do it, and you've built those skills, and I think that's wonderful. Thank you both for being up here with me today. You always make it so much better, and you have so many wonderful things to share, and I appreciate that, so thank you. And we will just wrap it up, because I know people probably need to get back to work and things, but thank you all for coming. My email address is available. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to share.
Thank you so much.